I like to say, like, independence is a myth. We're all interdependent. If I had to, take my garbage somewhere, like I'm interdependent on so many people in my life. Like if I was responsible for garbage transportation, I'd be even more of a mess than I am, right? So we're all interdependent, and that's a beautiful thing. It's not a bad thing.
Wow, guys, can you believe it? We're already over 20 episodes into Nick Speaks, but here's the truth. I couldn't have done it alone. The amazing team at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions has been with me every step of the way, from those early strategy sessions all the way to editing, promotion, and even helping me land guests. They've made it so all I have to do is show up, record, and focus on delivering the message. Kyle at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions tailors everything to your unique needs and is so creative to give you what you're looking for. But one thing's for sure, he gives 110% to help you create an incredible podcast. So if you've ever thought about starting your own podcast, now's the time. Hit the link in the show notes, set up a strategy session with Kyle, and get ready to take your podcast to the next level. Trust me, you won't regret it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the newest installment of the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. I'm your host, Nick Comstock. I'm so happy to be with you on this early Tuesday morning, or wherever you're listening to this, at what time. You're probably like, who does a podcast at 7 a.m.? Me. Anyway, I'm so happy to be with you. You guys, I love having parents of people with disabilities on the program because I really love to hear a parent's perspective. Last week, we had a parent on, and for the next 2 weeks, we're going to have parents on, and I love having parents on because it gives me a seat in their life for about an hour and how they see things. Today, I'm having a dear friend with me. Please welcome Sarah Davies to the podcast. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. So, Sarah, why don't you give the Nick Speaks audience a little bit of background story about how you found out you were going to have a different lot in life as far as having a disabled child, and a little bit about your career, because I know you're involved in social work and a little bit of the disabled space, so we can start off and then go from there.
Yeah, well, I guess my story really begins around 18. I moved out of state and I was desperate for a job, and got connected with an agency that provided supports for people with disabilities, and was newer to that space, but was thankful for a job. And back then in like 2002, they're like, sign on bonus of $250, and I was like, rich. So yeah, I started working as a direct support professional, and really just entered that world, that career. And so that ever since then, I've been in this field. And then, I moved out of state, I moved back into state, got married, always knew I wanted to be a mother. And so when in 2013, when I gave birth to my oldest daughter, her name is Evangeline, she was born, and we quickly realized that she had Down syndrome. So it wasn't ever, I guess there was a shock just because you weren't expecting it, but it never felt like anything that was like, yes, oh no, whatever will I do? So, I set out to be a parent. That was my desire, and I got my wish. So she was born in 2013. She's going to turn 12 soon. She's the oldest of 5. I have many, many children. But yeah, that kind of cemented the fact, kind of it made me realize like, okay, this is where we're at. It had been my career for so long. All of my education is focused around disability studies and disability rights. Um, and so things just, I don't know that I believe in fate, but if I did, I would definitely say we were meant to be, me and that girl.
Yeah. You are so animated. I love it. I was sitting here trying not to laugh at how animated you are because I love when guests come on and they're animated and they're fun. I want to back up a little bit because you said you started as a direct support professional, and a lot of people may not know what that is. And I said last week or one of these weeks, a couple of weeks ago, I said DSP is a direct support professional. It's just more of a respectful term for caregivers, for those people who for some reason have an issue with the term caregiver. It doesn't seem as professional or cool as you call it. Um,
Yeah.
but I want to ask you, so what made you, I mean, other than the 250 sign-on bonus, what made you and for those of you who are like $250 nothing, back in 2000, that was a lot of money. What made you want to be a direct support professional? What what put that in stone for you?
I think for me, it was just a way. I I can't really say, like, I honestly, until I walked in the home, I don't know, at me at 18, like, I'm a spacey human now. I must have been even more spacey. Lord help us all. But it didn't really click what I was doing until I actually walked in the home. I was like, oh, okay. But I've always just really felt passionate about people being important, and it doesn't matter differences or anything like that. I just really feel like humans in general are important, and I really enjoyed the fact that I could help give that extra support, whether it be a little or a lot, to allow people to live just good lives. And I think that that's really important, that we all have that opportunity to live quality fulfilled lives. um, I always say that my grandmother was a big reason why this field really, like, resonated with me. And when I was 12, my grandmother got very ill, and she came to live with me and my family, and that was for me a very difficult time, but also a very eye-opening time, because I was so used to my grandma being this amazing, kick-ass, strong woman. And all of a sudden, she needed this extra support. And I just always was so honored that we were able to be a part of her life during that time, because she had spent years and years taking care of other people. And I wanted her to still be happy and still be fulfilled. And so that for me was a very pivotal time in my life, where it just, that time with her was so important to me and so precious to me, that I wanted to be able to, again, allow people to still have fulfillment, and make sure that everyone understands that there's meaning at every stage of life, and there's belonging at every stage of life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, Sarah. A lot of the caregivers that I started out with, and a lot of the caregivers that I interview for positions today, they say I wanted to be a caregiver because I grew up either watching my mom take care of my grandma or my grandpa, or I had to end up taking care of my grandma or my grandpa myself. And I just always wanted to make sure that somebody else had the same care that my family member did. So that's why I got in the field. So I love that that's your story. And it always helps if we have caregivers who come into the field who have a passion for it, who have had to do it for a family member beforehand, because then they know how, they just know they don't really need any training on how to treat somebody else because they've already had to do it. So
Yeah.
it just
I
makes much easier.
I think that it really helps because I think there's so many myths around disability supports, right? Like you hear people all the time. I heard it all the time. I would take people who lived in the home where I work, we'd go grocery shopping and you'd hear these people like, you're really doing the Lord's work. And you're just like, what? Get away. No, like there's nothing heavenly. Maybe there's nothing heavily about just wanting people to be able to live their lives. Right. And it is like we live in a society where, you know, the elderly are often put into nursing homes, or the disabled are often put into like large congregate facility type, services. And I think out of anything, it is just my sincere belief that people deserve to be in their homes and to be part of their community. A lot of the work I do is really based around what does it mean to have community belonging, to have people on your team behind you, helping, no man's an island, right? I like to say, like, independence is a myth. We're all interdependent. If I had to, take my garbage somewhere, like I'm interdependent on so many people in my life. Like if I was responsible for garbage transportation, I'd be even more of a mess than I am, right? So we're all interdependent. And that's a beautiful thing. It's not a bad thing. And so to me, it's really just like us all coming together to support one another. And I think that's what community does. I think that's what family does. And it's definitely something I continuously strive for and work towards.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you were my DSP, I'm telling you, we may have a few MUIs on our hands. I think we would get in some trouble because I like to have fun, but that's okay. I always seem to get the DSPs that are just want to come in and just do what they have to do. I don't get the real fun ones. Maybe that's good for me, and so we don't have any MUIs. But yeah, so you said that your daughter was born with Down syndrome. Can you tell everybody what type of Down syndrome she has and what kind of challenges you face with that?
Yeah. So she has just run of the mill trisomy 21, which is, a duplicate of so instead of 2 of the 21st chromosome, she has 3 because one has the duplicate. And so, Down syndrome in itself comes in many different forms, right? Like no one person with Down syndrome is the same. I've had people say like, oh, your child has Down syndrome. She must be an angel. And I'm like, she's like stubborn and sarcastic. And I don't think angelic is ever a word I would use to describe her. So with that, we got lucky. So I think about 50% of children born with Down syndrome have to have open heart surgery within the first 3 months of life. We never had to do that. But on top of that, she did develop a type of epilepsy at 4 months old called infantile spasms. So that comes with an array of struggles. Prior to that, she was sitting up, making eye contact, like pretty on par for a 3 or 4 month old. But infantile spasms can cause a significant amount of brain damage and regression. And so once we got that diagnosis, things really did change. Her muscle tone, which was never stellar to begin with, got really bad. And so we ended up having a G tube placed for feeding. And then over the years, certain things with like, the low muscle tone and like the kind of like a floppy tongue, it led to issues where she was getting sick. And so we did have to have a trach put in. So she uses a trach to just get oxygen to her lungs whenever she needs it. But as she's growing older, she is growing stronger. So we still have the seizures. And then she also has type 1 diabetes, which gives us a whole new set of training on insulin pumps and continuous blood glucose monitors, all sorts of stuff. So she likes, I always say she's a firstborn because she's like a type A overachiever. So
Yeah.
she's just like, listen, I can get it, I can do anything. I got all this stuff. So
So within that time, because she's 12 now, have you ever, I'm sure there's been a time where you were just like wanting to throw up your hands and maybe bang your head against the wall. How do you deal with those times? Because she's got Down syndrome, she's got type 1 diabetes, she has a type of epilepsy, and I believe she even has a couple more things that you told me that we haven't mentioned yet. How did you not go insane? How do you not?
well, so one, I always joke around about my car breakdowns. So I'm a very big believer in the validity of emotions, right? Like our emotions exist because they're instincts, right? They're feelings. But there's this great author. Her name is Dr. Susan David, and she has this quote that says, emotions, feelings are data, not directions, right? So that's what I keep in my mind. And I think of it like anytime I feel a strong emotion, I'm going to feel it, right? Because if you try and stifle your emotions, you're not going to make it long, right? You're just going to like combust inside and do that. So I'm a very big believer in feeling your emotions, but I'm also a big believer in taking a second and trying to figure out like what that emotion, what that instinct, what that feeling is trying to tell you, right? And listening to that and let that kind of shape your decision. I think humans in general are very emotionally driven, whether that's anger, whether that's fear, and we let that overcome us. So we just make these rash choices, right? We make these rash decisions in the heat of the moment. I'm not saying I'm successful, dear Lord. I'm not always successful with this. But I really try to take the time to think about like, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. How valid is it? How do I go from here? What do I need to get through and process in order to move forward and learn from that emotion? So yes, there was a point in time where she was very, very sick, almost died multiple times. We spent about 10 months in the pediatric ICU, right? The PICU. And that was a lot because you're living between home with your other children and then you're living in a hospital and just all the different things that come at you during that time and the choices you have to make. It is very overwhelming. But my true North Star has always been like, I want her to have a quality life. I want to ensure that she remains with her family, around her peers as much as possible. So that's always been like my biggest thing. And heck, I will, any parent of a child with disabilities, find your community. I think that we tend to really segregate ourselves as parents.
Yeah.
Because we feel like, well, how would anyone understand what I'm going through? How they might not, right? We can't always understand what other people are going through. But I think for me, I had just the privilege and the honor of coming from a very tight knit family. Um, so I knew that I had them for emotional support. I have an amazing community of friends around me. And because I've been in this field, I also have like this amazing network of supports that I don't know that every parent knows they have access to. Um, and so I think sometimes we allow having a child with disability to make us feel othered, when we need to make sure that doesn't happen, right? Our kids belong, we belong, and we will remain a part of a community, of our friends, of our family.
And I think a lot of parents struggle with it. It's not your fault that your child is disabled, and it's not your child's fault. And it doesn't make you look weak because you're asking for community or for help in a certain way. Because I feel like even my parents struggled with that growing up, and we grew up in a um, community of faith. A church was a big part of my life, but just asking for help in that community, isolating ourselves. We're not going to tell them that our handicap accessible vans broke down because we don't have the money to replace it, and we don't want to get help from anybody else because God help anyone with a family member with a disability humble themselves and ask for help because that looks weak, and it's really not. And so parents with kids that have disability need to do a big gulp and just ask for help because that's what it's there for.
Yeah. And I think that is so hard, because um I like to be the, strong, independent, look at me go. I need no help from anyone.
Superhero.
Um, yeah, but that's just not reality. And it is a humbling experience. It's a humbling experience to realize that um you don't have everything it takes to successfully care for your child. And it's a very hard thing to accept, but it doesn't make it wrong. I don't think anyone can really do it on their own, when I talked about interdependence. But it is hard, especially when you're told, like, you're the parent, you provide for your child, you protect them. And then, realizing, oh gosh, there's all these things, that are happening that I can't protect my child from. It's hard. It's hard. And I don't think it's ever wrong to say, hey, I'm struggling with this right now. And I don't know what to do. Or I just need to tell you I'm struggling with it so that I can move on and continue to, get down to business and make sure my kid's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Didn't you say also in your pre-call that your daughter is nonverbal? She's
Yes.
nonverbal, correct? So how do you communicate with her? Because you said she's very sarcastic. You told me that she's very sarcastic. So how does a nonverbal person end up being sarcastic? How does that work?
Well, once you meet her, Nick, we'll make it happen. So Evangeline has pretty good receptive language, meaning if I say something to her, she'll indicate, it could be something as simple like, hey, you have to sit up because we gotta get dressed, you gotta get to school. And, and she can understand, kind of what's being said and everything like that. Her struggle comes in expressive language. So she doesn't necessarily have the ability to verbalize it. Due to her seizures, her eyes aren't particularly stable but she has like her eye rolls. She'll respond with smirks, facial expressions, and finding different communication devices is definitely high on my goal. She doesn't use her hands a whole lot, so she can't really touch, like a communication device to do that. And then because of the eyes, she can't use the one where, your eyes kind of indicate for you. I don't know the fancy words for it, but I will tell you this, and this is part of why I love being in this field and getting to do what I do every day. I just met a speech therapist who has like a device where they just have to like raise their arm and their screen reader will stop on the word they want. And now I'm just obsessed about finding a way to get that. But no, Evangeline she will make sure you know what she is thinking, whether that's eye rolls, heavy sighs, facial expression. This is the common, like when I'm talking, she's like face palm mother. Face literally head to hand. I can't tolerate you, mother. Please shut up.
So she's very expressive. That's good.
Yes.
So I want, because I haven't talked to very many people and I haven't dealt with very many people that have G tube. So does that they're not able to have regular food like a regular piece of pizza like you and I? Is that
Yeah.
correct, or is that?
I mean, I think it depends. Some people use a G tube for like supplemental nutrition. Like, so maybe they eat by mouth, but they don't get enough calories that way. They don't get enough nutrition. So I've seen it where someone does eat by mouth, and has the G tube for just, some extra stuff, to make sure they're continuing to grow and get all the nutrients they need. In our case, she doesn't eat anything by mouth, and is completely fed through the G tube. So it varies kind of from person to person.
Does she know that she's not able to eat like a steak? Does she understand that? Does she feel like she's missing out on something? Or
Yeah, we've tried different like textures and food. So she's just really not keen. I think it might be she's also has an autism diagnosis. Sometimes I forget some of them. I don't know. I'm not sure why I'm allowed to adult half the time. But she has some texture issues that she doesn't love. So chances are, we went through a phase where they were like, hey, you could do eating therapy. It's this 4-week intensive therapy where we get them to eat by mouth, and we do it for, 8 hours a day for 4 weeks. And I was like, and this is just me. This was just my thought that that sounds like torture. She doesn't want to eat by mouth. We've offered it before. And maybe in the future, I don't know. She's, like I said, she's almost 12 now, and this has been our main way of feeding. I mean, there was a time when she was a baby, and up until about, I want to say she was 18 months old when she got the G tube. She would eat some stuff from mouth. After the G tube, she would practice. She would do a couple things here and there. But at some point it wasn't of an interest to her, and I wasn't going to spend 4 weeks trying to force feed her by mouth just so it could be more socially acceptable. I don't know. And that was just me. That was my choice as a parent.
especially 8 hours a day, like holy geez.
It was some very intensive, and like I said, to each their own, and everyone has to make decisions. But we had so much else going on that I'm like, that's not a priority to me. Like, I don't care if you eat by mouth or you eat by G tube. I would rather you be here. Like, I'd rather you just be home. I'd rather you just be with your friends. I would rather all of that than you eat by mouth to make people feel better. I don't know. Like, it doesn't make her feel better. She doesn't seem to have the desire. So at that point, am I just doing it to make me feel better? Because she eats food, woo. As long as you're eating and healthy, I don't care how you get it.
How is she able to express, with her being nonverbal, how is she able to express things like, I'm not having a good day, I'm depressed because of my disability, or does she even realize that she has all these challenges?
She gets, I think 100% she understands that there's differences between her and her siblings, or her and some of her classmates. And there are times she'll let you know she's not feeling well. She'll let you know, like, hey, I just don't have it in me today. And that's usually, again, like just her facial expression, her body language. She lets you know. And I really don't know, like, I never want her to feel othered. I never want her to feel like, oh, I'm so different that, this person's afraid to come talk to me. So we make sure to really surround ourselves. Like, well, we absolutely go everywhere. My motto as a mom, whether it's with my child with disabilities or my non-disabled child, is like, we try. So like, you'll see us all over. We're trying stuff. And if she indicates like, hey, this is not flying for me, there were times, especially like 3 to 4, where the large crowds, she could not. She would make it very clear, nope, I'm not having it. And we would go home, because I don't want her to be incredibly uncomfortable. But I want to try, right? And so that's kind of just always my life motto is, I tried. It's going to say it on my tombstone. It's going to be like, this is Sarah. She tried.
Yeah. Did your other kids feel in some way, because I know I'll be talking with a parent later this week on my podcast, do your other kids ever feel resentful because they're not able to do certain things because she's not able to do certain things? Or do you all work that out in a family unit?
We always try and work on that. So like I said, I was in this field for a very long time, and I have seen many different types of families, many, different siblings. And even before I had more, children after her, I very much remember the dynamics of some of the siblings that I met who felt resentful, who felt like their parent gave up everything for their disabled child. Like I remember that very vividly. Like there just are certain situations in my mind that will be there forever, and I recall. So it's really important to me that we do a lot. I do a lot to make sure that they don't feel that way, right? And so whether that having another family member like, hey, would you take them here? Would you do this? We make sure that people have the opportunity to participate in their lives, because I don't want them to feel resentful. Now, there's sometimes like if she's in a hospital, yeah, I'm sorry, you have to go to the sitters for a little bit, but we talk about it, and they know, like, if they were in the hospital, that I'd be there for them too.
Be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we do a lot of work around that. And we try to have those supports in place so that there's not that resentment or that feeling. I will say my other kids, they're like, Evie's your favorite. And I'm just like, yeah, only because she doesn't yell at me like you do. She yells at me in other ways, but like only because she doesn't yell at me like you do, kid, you meanie. But
Yeah. Well, I don't think I was ever classified as the favorite kid, although I do tell my brothers that I'm the favorite grandson out of 5. And I truly believe I am, even though they'll never say it. But anyway. Yeah. So how because you and your ex-spouse, you co-parent. So how does he deal with your daughter and being disabled, and how does he, because they go back and forth
yeah, yeah.
with all of her stuff, and how does he deal with that? Is it kind of the same, or is it different, or
I mean, we do have a couple different approaches to life, having known him for as long as I have. But no, I think it's very much it's very much, we access the supports. I was very lucky that I worked in this field. So when things were getting hard to handle at home, and that was even prior to divorce, right? Like, I would work days, he would be on an evening shift, and there were certain like self-injurious behaviors that she exhibited as a younger child, where she just really needed that 24/7 eyes on her. And that wasn't possible with other kids and one parent working. So I was very fortunate to know, like, okay, I'm going to reach out to my board of DD and my local county board of developmental disabilities. You're not supposed to use acronyms on a podcast. Jeez Louise, I'm going to get in trouble.
you're okay?
But so like I'm a firm believer in utilizing those supports. Like our entire system was built by parents. I'm a huge history nerd. And so like our entire system was really built by parents, right? And so I think that's really important to know. And what an integral part, like families are to whatever disability support system you have in your state. And so I was very adamant about connecting, getting involved, and getting the support that we needed. Because when it comes down to it, even though it's hard to ask for help, I know her life's going to be better because we do have that extra support. And like I said, my entire goal is for her to have a quality life. And to be able to admit, like, okay, I can't do that on my own right now. And this is why the systems support, this is why they exist, those support systems.
Yeah. I tell throughout my speeches and throughout the podcast and throughout my TikToks, all the things, I tell parents that they need to prepare for the future as they would for their non-disabled children, because I feel like parents that have disabled children are like, oh, well, we don't need to plan for them because they're always going to be with us and they're always going to be around us. So we can plan our other kids' future and then cross the bridge when we come to it. But I tell them that's not how it should happen because number one, you're not always going to be here, and chances are your special needs kid, as much as they love you right now, they're not always going to want to be around you. So what are you doing or what have you done to plan for your daughter's future? Like, what are some things that you have in place, even though she's 12 and you probably don't want to think about it right now?
I know you're like, because I imagine like she's a preteen. Like I think she's already sick of my crap. She's like, get out of here, mom. No, I mean, and I think that's a big of like having those supports in place, right? Finding people in your life that you can trust and that have your back and that have your kids' backs, right? Like that's it's the same. I think you said it. Like if you do this for your non-disabled kid, you should do it for your disabled kid, right? Um, and can I do like a little preference? Like, because I feel like people always come after me and they're like, you didn't say child with disabilities, you said disabled kid. And that's because I'm really not offended by the word disability or disabled. And I don't think it's a negative thing. So, before we get the hate mail, I just like to throw that out because disability is not a swear word in my book. Okay. It's a way of being that we fully embrace in this house. But yes, she has access to the supports. I'm trying to do better because I am like, I'm going to do this and I have the numbers for that. So I'm trying to do better about like laying out. I always think that like, oh my gosh, if like my car goes off a bridge, these people are going to be screwed because like I have all this information up here, which I don't know it's the safest place for it, but I have all this information in my head. So I've been trying to get better about kind of like writing it out, this is where we get this is the doctor for that. And so I'm working on that. I don't know what the future holds. Hopefully she's sick of my garbage and is like, I'm moving out with friends, mom. But I want to make sure she has that support system in place. I also have like 13 nieces and nephews. So I constantly remind them that if I keel over at any point, they will be helping out. My goal for Evangeline is always to live in the community with people who love and care about her. So I try to create as many this is field lingo, as many non-paid supports, as many natural supports as I do any like paid supports. And just so like everyone can come together to what?
We love the field lingo, don't we? And there's so much of it.
Field lingo. Yes.
We could make a game show out of all the disabled lingo and then give out free disabled product.
Okay, so my friend Tony has a podcast, and we've done this. Him and we did a podcast where they gave abbreviations, and they're like, "What does it stand for? What does it stand for? What did it?" And I sucked at it. It was terrible. I'm like, I should know this better. I definitely lost the game. But yes, it is game show worthy. But yeah, I think one of the biggest things, one of the most beautiful things, and also sometimes the most upsetting things that I've seen is parents who feel like they have to do it all on their own, and then they reach a point where they physically cannot, and then that whole person's world is just torn apart because they've always just relied on their family, or they've always just relied on this one person, and something terrible happens to them. So my approach to that is like, yes, I'm going to make her community as big as possible, but I never want that to happen to her where I've just made her my whole world and she's made me her whole world, that if something tragic were to happen, that it would just be like, what do we do now? Right. So I think my job as a parent is really to prepare for, just like I prepare my other kids to someday live without me. Please be out of my house by 18. I can't take this forever. No, like
get a lot of hate mail saying that because now
I know they're gonna be like, "You ungrateful woman." Meh. Whatever. I love my kids. I just don't want them living with me forever. Okay. Jeez,
you
I'm
know
tired.
a lot of parents out there now that these parents are like, I would never throw my kid out at 18. That's just wrong. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, please? I wish my parents were saying that. I had to pry myself out of there at 28.
It is hard. And there's so much, it's hard to trust other people, right? And so I really work on, local community, the people around me. We know that people with disabilities are often othered, right? Like, there's the other population of people that, oh, we don't know A, B, and C. But the more that we interact with others with disabilities,
That's what you
so
mean by other, right? We're segregated.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, historically, right? Like, even with schools being inclusive, their idea of inclusive is literally like a special needs classroom in the same school as other people. And my idea of inclusion is like, no, like, let's all go to class together, right? And figure it out. Um, so I think, just part of people with disabilities being more accepted in their community, I believe, is more access, is more being out there, and kind of showing people like, here we are, we exist. And actually, like, disability is a lot of times just a natural occurrence, and at some point in our lives, we all might experience that, whether it's from aging or disease or whatever. It's just a different way of being, but it's not abnormal. I don't
How
know.
do your daughter's non-disabled friends act around her? Like, obviously, I'm assuming she has non-disabled friends. So how does that? Because when I grew up, people were always like, well, I don't know how to talk to Nick. And with me, it was always, well, just open your mouth and speak. I'm right here. But, she is nonverbal. So I could see that barrier being in there.
Well, first, I think you should have told them something outlandish, like, oh, if you want to know how to talk to me, you have to like be standing on your head, rotating in a circle, please, and then we'll talk.
Should've. I should have so bad. I should have, but you weren't around in my school days, so I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't be everywhere. Um, think I think one of the things that we do, and I won't lie and say like she has all these non-disabled friends, right? Because we have gone through a period over the last few years of her being very, very sick, and then COVID happening, and in and out of the ICU. So that does make it very difficult to develop friendships, but we try and cultivate those friendships. Um, and typically, if you're a kid over here, like, my house is like Grand Central for every neighborhood child. I don't know. People think just because you have a lot of kids, you like all the kids, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's everyone's up in this house. And I'm like, for the love of God, what made
Yeah.
you think I was welcoming? No, I'm just joking. I am welcoming. They can hang here. So we always talk, and we're always ready to answer questions like, oh, how do I talk to her? I don't know. How do you talk to anyone else? Same thing. There were a lot of people, like, we used to have a neighbor girl in our last neighborhood that would sneak in and make sure, she'd hug, she's like, oh, I just snuck in to hug Evie, and they'll be over there cuddling. So I think it's just to kind of remove the mystery of it, like, or the wait, I'm not going to say it right. It not being familiar, right? The unfamiliarity. I think that's how you say it. Me and pronouncing words, I can butcher any word. Yeah, but take away that, we're not scared of the familiar. So like that's just get out there, go to those neighborhood cookouts, go to that 4th of July block party, and don't be afraid to exist in the world. I'm not one bit ashamed of my child. She's an amazing human, and I'm really proud of her. And she's had to deal with more crap than the majority of adults out there in her 12 years. So, like, she's the strongest, most resilient human I've ever met in my life. And anyone would be freaking lucky to have her as their friend. And she might reject you. because she's a little shit sometimes. Okay. Because she might be like, nope, not my friend. Bye. So.
Oh wow, she's obviously got an eccentric personality like her mom, because
I think it clearly does not come from my side. I am very meek and mild and calm. I'm pretty sure those are all words used to describe me, Nick.
I love this. I love every minute of it. So, you were a DSP for a long time. So, do you think that prepared you for this? Because you were a DSP before parent, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You think it prepared you now for what you're having to go through with the challenges?
I think it prepared me in some regard. I'm very, there's not many things that intimidate me where, like, like I said, like, type 1 diabetes is like her most, recent diagnosis. And when I say recent, like 4 or 5 years. And so it helped because I had, worked and helped support, someone with very, very serious diabetes in my early 20s, right? So it wasn't just like, oh, I've never dealt with this. It was like, okay, well, this one time, yep. I vaguely recall this. Yep, okay. So I was able to fall back on some of that. Yes.
This one time at band camp, I had
One time at band camp, I had to work an insulin pump. Yep, this all sounds about right. Okay. So I feel like in that regard, it's really nice because I don't feel like we gotta knock on some wood. I don't feel like there's too much that has me like, I can't do this. So I really approach things with like, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to do this. One of my favorite stories is when she first got her trach, the hospital was like, okay, you can't take her home until you successfully done trach care, changed, oh gosh, I'm not even going to remember the name. The straps, that hold the trach in place. There's a real word for it that I can't think of right now. So anyways, so they're like, we have to see you do it. We have to know you can do it. I'm like, I'm sure I can do it. Okay. But I was also 9 months pregnant at the time. So I'm just sitting there and, those hospital beds, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to reach around. My belly is in the way. So I was like, all right, everyone move out of my way. And so I straddled her I didn't put my pregnancy weight on my child. Don't worry. Everything was safe. There were doctors and nurses involved. And I'm doing the trach care. And of course the trach pops out and all the nurses are like, gasp. And I'm like, and put it back in. And I was like, okay, done that. Trach ties, that's what they're called. Change the trach ties, did the cleaning, trach popped out, put it back in. And I look around because I have all this going on. I'm like, okay, I can do this. No big deal. Oh, it popped out. Let's not panic. Let's just put it back in. Like I had this whole thought process and I turn around and behind her bed, like, because I'm facing this way, facing her. And behind me is just a row of doctors and nurses. And they're all like, and I'm like, oh, did I not do that right? Like, I got it done. And they're just like, we've just never seen anything like that. And I'm like, look, I said, I'm 9 months pregnant. I got to take this girl home or else I will just go in the bathroom and deliver this baby. So come on, let's go. I got stuff to do. So yeah, it helped in that regard. I don't think there's enough to prepare parents of disabled kids for the actual emotions that come with it, and to prepare people for the additional emotional load that comes with it. So I know we talked about this before. When I had E, it was very important to me, because people come up and say things to you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I had one person say, you're living my worst nightmare. And I'm like a new mom. I have the squishiest, cutest little baby in the world. And you're like telling me I'm living your worst nightmare. So all of that really like got me thinking, right? Like, well, why disability isn't bad. There's scary parts, right? But my whole thing is disability can be scary, but it shouldn't ever be feared. And so
Right.
for me, that's really been a driving force. And then I started to realize kind of like these different things. Like there was a popular blog that was like the mother I could have been. And it was all about how, oh, she wanted to be the mom that went to music class and did this, but, had play dates, but she's therapy mom because she has a disabled kid. And it just was like, it really presented having a child with disabilities as a burden. And I'm like,
yeah, because a lot of times that's how we feel. I know that I've grown up and I felt like a burden, still do in a lot of ways. And it's how parents react to it. And it doesn't have to be that way.
yeah. And so I'm always really careful. Like, yeah, there's hard times. Hell yeah. Also, having a non-disabled child, that's a hell of a lot of work too, just in case. Yeah. And there's real hard times there too. So it just got me thinking, like, maybe just being a parent is stressful. And it's really easy for us to portray having a child with disability as, like burdensome or so hard, or we have the, oh, you're super mom. No, like I'm like I want a shirt that says world's okayest mom. I manage. Okay. Everyone's still alive at the end of the day. That's a successful day. Did I feed them, a peanut butter sandwich and throw gummy vitamins at them? Yes, I did, but they're alive. And so I think it's just so important that when we talk about our children, there can be hard times. Certain medical issues are difficult to process. Navigating the DD system on top of the education system, on top of the medical system, on top of, let's add another system, that is stressful. But when it comes to my kid, there's not a negative thing other than the fact that she doesn't appreciate my humor. I can think of. And again, like I said, like,
kid. I don't know a kid who doesn't appreciate that.
Why do they think I'm so weird? I think I'm delightful. But I think it's really important. Like the world's going to view. I think the biggest thing I can tell the parents with disabled kids is like the world is going to view your child through you, through your lens, and whatever idea or information we promote about our child speaks volumes, right? And so we have to, and I'm not saying you don't need a safe space to vent, or you can't be honest and say, look, I'm going through a real hard time. My kid has been in the PICU for 10 months and I'm about to pop out another one. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Okay. And to like you can say that, but this idea that disability is the root cause of extra burden or stress in your life, we got to be careful about that. I wanted to be a mom. I got to be a mom, and I'm super happy about that. And I would change some of the things she's had to go through, but I wouldn't change anything about her because she is a really super wonderful human who I'm really honored that I get to raise. And I feel that way about all my kids most of the time. Sometimes.
Most of the time.
Well, most of the time, I'm like, get the heck out of my house.
Yeah.
No one likes you right now.
You said something and I never thought of it, is that people in the world are going to view your disabled child how you view them. And if you view them as this helpless, fragile, never going to do anything, never going to have any goals, then it's going to be hard for the world to see them as anything more. And it's really important for the parents to understand that people with disabilities is that, yes, your children are going to have barriers to overcome, but it's not the end of the world. But if you act like it's the end of the world, then the people that are around them are going to act like it's the end of the world too. That just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm also really glad that you're not one of those who'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm glad that you're preparing, because so many parents like mine and other parents are like that. And then it was, okay, well, I'm going to drive myself across this bridge, because they didn't really my parents pictured me being with them all the time. And so when it came for time to me to move out, I think it was a big shock for them because they were like, Nick talked a big game. Nick thought he was going to do it. And oh my God, now he actually did it. So
Yes.
it was a big shock for them. So I'm so glad that you as a parent, that you and your co-parent are working towards, or hopefully living in the community and having a normal as life as one can with all the disabilities that she has. I
Yeah.
mean, I will say, as far as the medical system goes, don't you just feel like, I didn't go to 8 years of medical school, but I guarantee you I know more about my daughter than you do. So you need to shut up and sit down and let me explain.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I think that's a huge thing. We've been through it. We have cultivated an amazing team of doctors currently. I don't know that we're where I want to be at some point. But being able to have medical professionals in your life who understand the nuances of her as a human first and foremost. A lot of people use the medical model of disability, which I think probably a lot of doctors do. And the medical model is, this is something that needs cured, that needs fixed, that needs, looking as it more of just like a medical thing. And so I think there's value in using the social model of disability, which is saying, okay, disability exists, but sometimes we make people more disabled. There's air quotes there. I don't know. Is this a video recording or is it just a voice recording?
No,
Air quotes. Okay, great.
it's
Uh,
too. Go to my YouTube channel.
yes. I think we further hinder people by looking at, instead of like, oh, they're a wheelchair user, we need to find a way for them to walk again. Like, in a social model of disability, we're saying, oh, they're a wheelchair user. We need to make things more accessible so they can get to all the places they need to go. And what can we do as a society to increase people's ability instead of just saying, oh, it needs fixed, So stuff like that. I really think that finding your right medical team is so important. Finding your right team is so important, right? Like just finding the people to be around you, whether you're talking about team in a more systematic type or just team like your friends and your community and people who are going to pick you up and sneak margaritas into the hospital room for you because you're about to have a nervous breakdown, like that's a team.
Yeah. One more question I have for you before we wrap things up, Sarah. I so appreciate you coming on today, but I wanted to ask you too, because we talked about you being a caregiver before all this. So, have you introduced other caregivers into your life to help with your daughter? And if so, like, how is that? How have you been able to distance yourself from being a helicopter mom and letting caregivers do their job?
Yeah. So we don't do we work through an agency, but I typically find my own staff. So I'll put out um something on Facebook or I'll be like, "Hey, we're looking for staff from these hours." We've tried, more just like, oh, this is who an agency sends type situations. But our house is anything but calm. There's Evie and then there's 4 other kids. So Evie is going to be 12 soon and the youngest one is 4. It is a hectic time and not everyone can deal. So I do a lot of searching on my own or using, again, my community of people. So some of our best caregivers were friends of a friend, were people that we knew from other situations in life. And so like that whole concept is more of a self-directed model where we cultivate relationships. And that means you get people who might not be like, oh, I'm going to be a caregiver. That's my chosen field. But because they have relationships to you in some way, they're like, yeah, I would do this. And I really care about your kid, So I feel like that helps us cultivate. And having someone you can trust is just the easiest way to not helicopter parent. And there's days where I'm like, you know what, I want to do this right now because there is something there is something very bonding of being able to care for your child, but also as a 12-year-old, I don't think she wants mom doing everything. And I just kind of want to be a mom. Okay, I just want to be the annoying mom that you roll your eyes at and gives you some smooches, and I think it's been easy, a little easier for me because I want to make sure other people in her life know how to do those things. Again, I know, there's a good 4 or 5 people in her corner that can take care of her needs, other than me. And so for me, that's been the best way to do that. And there are times where you're just like, nope, I need to mama bear my baby and I'm going to take care of it,
Yeah.
But overall, for us, it hasn't been a difficult process. And there are times where I'd be like, see someone doing something, I'd be like, I would do that different, but like you just have to let go sometimes. If when she moves out on her own, she'll probably have roommates or something like that. I mean, I'm not saying I won't be the mom that swings by multiple times, like twice a day, once a day.
Everything's okay. Yeah.
I'm already that mother,
Yeah.
So
I lied. I have one more question.
okay.
So the last question I have for you is, so we talk a lot about in our system supportive decision making. How is your daughter able to be a part of that? Is she able to say, I want this caregiver? Is she able to say, I don't want this person, or I don't want this service? How is she able to be a part of that?
You will tell pretty early on whether she has decided this person worthy to work with her or not. She's very expressive, but also it's really how she responds. So like she will, if she likes someone, she'll lean into them. She doesn't particularly like being touched, but if she initiates the touch, that's usually, a good sign. And so there's certain tells that you can kind of see that she cares for that person. She likes the way, and honestly, the people that she has, not liked the most are the people who treat her as an infant, who are like, oh, the baby, she has no time for that. She will she will be treated as the almost 12-year-old she is. She will demand your respect, and don't you try and treat her like the perpetual child, because you might get ninja kicked. She has these crazy flexible legs and she like flips them over and kicks you right in the face if she's unhappy. So not that we promote violence here, but if you're going to treat a 12-year-old child like a baby because she has a disability, maybe you deserve a roundhouse ninja kick. Just saying. Just saying.
It's not like the high-pitched singing voice. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, it's so...
I love it.
I'm not promoting violence, I promise.
Well, she may wake up and choose violence if that happens.
I've seen that child wake up and choose violence more times than I can count, but
yes. Well, this has been so much fun, and I hope parents have listened to this today. And if you know a parent with a young person with a disability, please share this episode with them. And Sarah, you will be back because you're just so eccentric and expressive. I encourage everybody to go watch the video version because you can see all of her little faces and, her little signs and her little air quotes. And I love it all. So go watch the episode. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a fun experience, and I am more than happy to come back and talk at you anytime. Yeah. Can't shut me up.
We'll have to do it. And so join us next week, guys, for an all-new episode of Nick Speaks. Thank you for joining us for this one. And this is the Nick Speaks podcast. I am your host, Nicolas Comstock. This is the podcast dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. I will see you guys next week. Have a great week. Bye.